Welcome to Trust Talks with BBB Serving CT. I'm Kristen Johnson. In business, trust talks, and Better Business Bureau's mission is to enhance marketplace trust. In each one of our episodes, we hope to give you a better idea of what to expect, what to look for, and what to look out for, so you can spend your money wisely and avoid being scammed. Death. It's a topic we often avoid, but we shouldn't, whether it's discussing how we want our assets divided after we're gone, or our final wishes. It's really one that's important to have with your loved ones. And that's why we've brought on two experts in their fields to talk about how to broach this sensitive subject. Daniel Friedman is the CEO of Wealth Management Group of North America in Farmington, and Anthony Lucibello Jr. is an advanced planning specialist at Howard K. Hill Funeral Services in New Haven. Thank you both for being with us today. I really appreciate it. So many families don't have these discussions. I'm going to ask you both, why are they important? Daniel, start with you.
The reason they're important is it isn't inevitable. I think the way that we discuss it with our subscribers is that they're actually loving conversations. Times of stress are when things can be difficult in families, and what is a bigger time of stress? When someone is incapacitated or you've lost them. So having those conversations before those things happen provides peace of mind to your family.
And Anthony, we're going to talk about pre-planning your funeral. Why is that also an important discussion to have with your loved ones?
As Daniel has mentioned, pre-planning allows the family to make decisions with the stress is not there. They haven't lost their loved one, so they have the opportunity to pre-plan, not under a time constraint of a lot of decisions being made in a very short amount of time to fulfill their loved one's wishes. It also allows for the entire family to kind of come together and meet and know exactly what their loved one's wishes are, mom or dad or brother, sister, or husband, wife, whatever it may be. And it allows time, and things can change as time goes on. So it's not like it has to be black and white at that time. Things could evolve.
Daniel, who should be bringing these conversations up? Is it the parents bringing it up to their children, the children bringing it up to their parents, or does it really depend on the family dynamic?
It depends on the family dynamic. You know, there's certain families who these conversations are, I mean, these are difficult conversations, right? Talking about, so, you know, I've got 3 sons, talking about if something were to happen to me, who is going to make my medical decisions if I can't? Who is going to make make sure my financial affairs are taken care of? We recommend that the parents have that conversation. First and foremost, if it's a couple, that the couple needs to have that conversation. If it's someone who's not in a couple relationship like myself, then I've made it pretty clear to my sons, they're all adults. When they weren't, I made it pretty clear to the people who are going to be trustees as to what I wanted to have happen. I didn't necessarily get into it with my sons when they were younger. So I think it's incumbent upon the primary generation to have those conversations and include, there's some information that you do not need to include to the next generation. There is some information that is helpful to include. I think each family has to determine that themselves.
Okay, Anthony, would you agree?
I do, and like Daniel said, every family dynamic is different, and depending on the situation with the family, spouses, mother, fathers, brother, siblings. It might be that you don't have a +1 and you don't have any children, and it might be your brother or sister, and it might help you and help that loved one. I don't think it really matters. I think it's just very vital that the conversations can happen, and they happen. It should start as a light conversation, not something where it's full go. Maybe just a simple, hey, have we given any thought to end of life wishes? And then go from there, and then evolve it to get in your local funeral home or the funeral home that you want to have fulfill those wishes. Get involved. When the time is right, when the family is ready to really sit down and talk.
Okay. Well, before we go further, I want to give you each a chance to tell me a little bit about your business. So Anthony, you first. Tell me a little bit about Howard K. Funeral Services.
So Howard K. Hill Funeral Services just celebrated last summer the 20th anniversary. Howard started the business down in New Haven. He bought a business called Clark Bell and Bell. Went there, bought the business, changed the name to Howard K. Hill Funeral Services. In the 20 years, he then went to Hartford and bought the other facility at Clark Bell and Bell on Barber Street in Hartford. And then from there, he bought the Fuqua Funeral Home in Bloomfield. So he's built a very strong and reputable funeral home in our industry within 20 years. He preaches family, we're a team, and unity, and we all work together.
Daniel, tell me a little bit about Wealth Management Group of North America.
So we've been providing subscription-based tax and wealth management services since 1995, a bit different, with the idea that most middle-class millionaires are inundated with investment advice, get little to no tax planning, tax advice. So we've always taken what we call a tax-out approach. Again, Anthony said, we are a team. We've got each other's backs. We win and lose together. If we take care of each other, then we can take care of our subscribers. And we've been having a lot of fun for 30 years. We have an office down in Florida where Brian lives with his wife and two beautiful daughters. And, look forward to continuing to, serve our local community. We have folks in 38 states.
Wow.
And, the future's bright. So
there are all different types of financial planning, but we want to talk about estate planning today. So let's start off with, what is estate planning?
Everyone who, again, estate planning happens as to what you want to have happen to the disposition of your assets when you're not around, or again, if you are unable to manage it while you're here. Mm-hmm. So that's the basics of it. Estate planning typically would be wills, trusts, power of attorney, living will, health care. Depending on how complicated the estate plan is, then there's more robust things, but those are the basic things that would be covered in an estate plan.
So then it's not the same as a will. A will is part of it.
Right, a will is part of it, right? The estate plan would again, if you have minor children and something happened to you, who would be their guardians? That would be in your will. But the plan is what you want to have happen.
With your money, with your house.
With your money, your house.
Bank accounts.
Investments, life insurance policies, beneficiary designations all go into that. Okay. Those are separate from what goes through your will. People often get that confused. How you title assets will impact what needs to be in the will. So there is some complications that may not seem to meet the eye initially.
And then medical directives.
And then, right, that's all part of the living will, health care, who can access your, with HIPAA, who can, you give people permission to look at your medical records, then you give permission to people to make medical decisions. It can all be the same. It can be different people having access to different responsibilities.
What are the benefits of adding a living trust?
Well, again, it depends on what your plan is and what you're trying to accomplish. A living trust in and of itself does not have a significance. A living trust, though, is one way to avoid probate. Probate is a public circumstance. Your living trust is private. It allows you to often protect assets. The living piece of it is that if I were to put assets into the Daniel J. Friedman Living Trust, I can then take them out if I wanted them. It is a revocable
That was my next question.
type of trust.
Okay. Those people worry that, oh, now I don't have this money. What if I fall in hard times or I need it? But you can take it back. Okay,
Right.
You can get it out. That's good. What age should you create an estate plan? Do you have children?
Well, everyone has an estate plan if they don't have one with the state of Connecticut.
Okay.
Okay.
That's probate?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. The disposition of your assets. So once you own stuff,
Okay.
it's time to start looking at, estate plan, asset protection. That also goes into when you talk about trusts. So once you have stuff.
Once you have a house or once
Have a house, right? Obviously, children, marriages, partnerships, all those types of things, personal and business-wise, go into what that estate plan is as to what is your estate.
Okay, that makes sense. And then there's ongoing management of the estate plan, correct?
Yeah, well, it's a living, we talk about living trust, right?
Yeah.
So every 5 or 6 years, unprovoked, when we talk to our subscribers, and we have strategic professionals in that space, lawyers, you don't need to have a lawyer to do your wills and trusts.
Okay.
We strongly recommend it. And then there's many reasons to do that. They're far more familiar, and it's certain language and process that validates the will. So in Connecticut, they need to be, signed by, witnessed by people who said I was competent to do this, who aren't going to partake in it. It has to be written. So getting an attorney involved is important. And what my wishes were when my sons were babies is different now that they're in their 20s and 30s. So I might want to make adjustments.
Okay.
There may be people who I have as successors who I don't want to or aren't around anymore. So these things often can be 30, 40, 50 years. Right? So, when I first did it, I was younger than I am now. I'm 60 now. Figure, 100, I've got a good run ahead of me. So there's 40 more years. So yes, this is an ongoing process. Things can change, acquire things, your wishes change, your family circumstance changes. All those circumstances need to be accounted for.
You may have grandchildren. You may want to leave something to them now. You didn't have them 20 years ago, that sort of thing. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Could you tell us on average how much it costs to create and maintain a trust?
Again, it depends what goes into it.
Okay.
But typically, I would say and we're talking a pour over trust means your will, the assets from your will go into the trust. That whole with the sort of the basic estate plan with a living trust, which is different than an irrevocable trust. Those are more costly to maintain. I'd say, between $2,500, $4,000 with a estate planning attorney.
Annually?
No, one time.
Okay.
And then again, if you're putting assets in and redeeding it and you're not doing it yourself, then, you want to put your home into the living trust, then you decide to take it out. Then there's certain documents that have to be done. You can do it all yourself, but typically you'd hire an attorney, and so then there's some cost for their time and expertise. But once you set it up, if there's no significant modifications, then there's no ongoing cost.
Okay. So, Anthony, you've been sitting quiet here. Many may be wondering if you're doing right by your mother and father when it comes to planning their funeral. So with advanced planning, which is what we're going to talk about today, they really have one less worry, correct?
Correct.
So that's obviously one of the benefits of doing this ahead of time.
Absolutely. It just allows the family and the children to know exactly what their mom or dad wanted.
So you're taking the burden off.
You're
of them,
definitely
right?
taking the burden off, because I've sat in numerous arrangement conferences with families over my career where I'll have siblings asking each other, did we do the right thing? Or start to get the other way, where under stress, our emotions are higher, where there might be a little underlying backstory to the family, and now they start to get a little bit agitated with one another. Well, dad wanted this. Well, no, really, dad didn't want this. And they start to get, it starts to get some of those old family scars start to come about again. And doing it ahead of time with the mom and dad, if they're able to do it, it takes the burden off of the kids or the survivors. Whoever the survivors are, whoever the people making the final decisions, it definitely takes the burden off of them.
And it's not just planning your funeral, but paying for it too.
You can pre-fund it. Yes, you can pre-fund it with an annuity product. You can also pre-fund it with an insurance product. So you do have both. The money that is given to the funeral home by law has to be put in a third party. The funeral home cannot legally put those funds into their daily account.
Okay.
So it has to go into a fiduciary account.
And then it's gaining interest over
It
time.
does. It
Okay.
does.
What are some of the other advantages of going this route?
Some funeral homes will allow with the pre-funding the funeral itself, meaning using an annuity product or an insurance product, paying for it in full at 2025 cost compared to what happens in 2035 when it's needed. So the annuity product tries to offset the cost of inflation over time, and where funeral homes will lock in or freeze the cost of the funeral home charges, not so much the third-party charges. The third-party charges are charges that happen outside of the funeral home. It may be the cemetery or a synagogue or your church or your crematory. It might be flowers, things that you don't have control over the inflationary costs. And in that case, they're allowed the interest growth plus the principal towards that days. So if it was $500, let's say, to open a grave, and it happened over 10 years, there's some growth there. So they'll have the principal plus the interest on that $500 to use at today's cost. If today's costs are $625, they'll have that there.
So really there are both emotional and financial advantages.
Oh, 100%. There's great advantages of doing both.
You talked about the fact that the funeral home cannot use the money that you are, pre-spending the money, that sort of thing. But we have heard stories, unfortunately, of funeral homes mismanaging money. So what do consumers need to be on the lookout for to make sure they're not being scammed?
The number one thing is obviously to pick a reputable funeral home that's backed by BBB.
Mm-hmm.
And once you do sit down with that funeral home and the funeral director, you should and you have to receive a contract, either from the annuity company that the money is going into or the insurance company that the money is going to. And those contracts you sign, and you should have a copy of those, whatever it might be, insurance or an annuity product. If you find that the check is it gets a little strange because the checks are made out to the funeral home, but the funeral home is supposed to take the check accompanied with the contract and send it to that company. And then if you do not start to receive information back from that company, I would get concerned, because all the families that we have sign up, they get correspondence back from the company where the money is. And like I explained to the families, the annuity product we use is a local company here in Madison, Connecticut. The money is yours. It's not ours. The only time that we can access the money is when we have to render a service. So if you pick up and move to Florida, the money follows you, meaning that if you want to use a funeral home in Florida, it's still your money. It's your money with your name, your date of birth, and your social security number. It's not the funeral home's money. The only time we have access is when we have to render the service that is agreed upon.
So you've gotten past the awkward conversations. Now, how do you start this process? And I know it can be very personalized. Go through the list of, once you start the process, what you can pick out, what you can pay for ahead of time.
So that's a great question. And I've had families where they only want to do a very entry level and get their bio information down for the death certificate, and they just want to start funding it, and they will not pick out any merchandise or any services or any scripture or hymns or flowers or anything. And then there's families that want to, while we're here, let's just go through the entire process. And they can pick out everything from the moment that we take their loved one back in our care to the funeral home, all the way to the repast, the celebration, the luncheon or dinner or whatever it may be after the funeral is concluded. And you can pick out your casket or urn, your vault, your laid to rest if you want to go to a cemetery, if you want to be, scattered with your cremains, flowers, what type of flowers, what colors, scripture readings.
Time of day even, right?
You can even say, we have families that say, hey, we want 2 hours middle of the day and 1 o'clock service and a burial here, and we want to go here for a luncheon. And we have families that really get, you can fulfill, you can go through the entire arrangement, and just the only thing that the family will have to do when you leave, when you pass away, is just actually come back into the funeral home, sign the contract, which is called an at-need contract. Now it's a time of need. We have to, by law, we have to have you sign that contract, and they just have to pick out the day and the times.
Now, you don't have to pre-fund. You
No.
can pick these things out without pre-funding.
Correct.
What is the average cost of a funeral these days?
An average burial cost in Connecticut, statewide, because parts of the state are different, because we do butt up against New York, and that does increase the monetary value of certain things. Burial with a casket in the ground, I would say if you do not own your own grave, you're looking somewhere around $12,500.
And what items are not included that you can maybe pick out ahead of time, but they're not included as far as paying for ahead of time?
You can pay ahead for everything. But the only thing that the funeral home cannot control the inflationary costs is cemeteries, churches, municipality paperwork. Death certificates might go up, burial permits or cremation permits might go up. Those are state Connecticut regulated items.
Gotcha.
The medical examiner for cremation is a cost.
Gotcha. Daniel, I was just talking to Anthony about scammers. We know scammers like to be where we're spending our money. When we're researching someone to hire for estate planning, what do we need to look for or watch out for?
On any important purchase, and this is an important purchase if you're not going to do it yourself, and you don't have to hire anyone to do it, I strongly recommend it, would be Better Business Bureau. See what law firms are on there. A trusted person, a trusted advisor. Make sure that it's reputable, that there's experience. To avoid scammers in general, follow your gut. If you sit down with someone and something just does not seem right, then listen to it and, thank you next and talk to someone else. Those are the ways to avoid scammers. We don't typically see most attorneys out there. There's, the law board and all this. Not that attorneys are people, and there's attorneys who are not doing the right thing.
Yeah.
But in this space, go to an estate planning firm that specializes in that.
Are there any certifications or licenses that a person has to have to do this work?
If it's an attorney, obviously.
Yeah, that's true.
There are certifications in the financial world.
Okay.
Again, the same would be that there's some who have certifications on the advanced estate planning rules and regulations. It does not necessarily mean that they are experts in that field. They pass the test, or they pay the, few $100s a year to maintain the certification. So,
any state laws here in Connecticut that govern estate planning that people should educate themselves on?
yeah, well, there's definitely the probate court is based upon Connecticut law.
Okay.
So, one thing, if you don't have an estate plan, again, there's intestacy laws that the probate court says, okay. An example would be if you're married and have a child and one of the parents passes away and you don't have any estate plan, you don't have anything, you have no will. The first $100,000 goes to the surviving parent. The remainder gets divided 50-50. Interesting. So that may not be what you wanted to have happen, but that ends up what happens. A whole bunch of things on conservatorship. If you have a power of attorney, you can avoid having to go to the probate court. There's the probate court for a minor child, who's going to be the guardians, a whole variety of rules and regulations that are specific, probably similar to other states, but specific to Connecticut. So one thing is, if you move to Connecticut, you don't need new wills and documents per se. You might want to have them reviewed to see if there's some technical thing that Connecticut has that, say, Iowa didn't have.
Okay. Well, I need to wrap up because we're running out of time, but I have one last question for both of you. You've both been accredited for a long time. WMGNA has been accredited with BBB since 1997. What do you hope that accreditation says to your clients?
Well, that we want to be part of the formal business community where we're situated here in Farmington. The Better Business Bureau is the gold standard of professionalism, of ethics, of independence, looking and evaluating. And if there's a problem, people can go to the Better Business Bureau. I don't think we've ever had such a thing. And they will then reach out to us and say, Anthony had a problem with you, and he complained to us. What's your side of the story? Just as I said, I don't know how long the Better Business Bureau, a lot longer than we've been around. So I think that any business who is interested in their reputation, in doing the right thing by the communities that they serve, can't go wrong with the Better Business Bureau.
And Anthony, Howard Cahill Funeral Services joined about a decade later in 2007. What do you hope that accreditation says to your customers and clients?
Peace of mind, that they know that we're going to do right for not only them, but their loved one. They're entrusting us with their loved one's last wishes, their send-off, their going home ceremony. Like Daniel said, just the limelight that comes with the Better Business Bureau, it just gives you a little bit more, that gives the consumer more a reassurance that they're a reputable company. They are going to take care of not only us, our entire family, but their deceased loved one, and that there's not going to be any sort of funny business. I hate to use that word, but there's not going to be any, and if they do have a problem, they can always go to you, then they can come to us, and then there's a complaint, there's somewhere they can stand behind.
Well, it's been an honor to have both of you as experts here today to help us walk us through this. Hopefully this advice can help turn what could be an awkward conversation into something more productive, providing peace of mind and ensuring your wishes or those of your loved ones are honored. And we thank you for joining us for this episode of Trust Talks.